It's like you guys never, you always keep asking. I should know.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start in just a couple of minutes.
Oh, amazing. I feel like I'm going to end up stepping on like some sound equipment. I think I'm good. He's going to be stuck in traffic. The traffic for this one. Are you okay? So also retest. Do you have blood or something or?
Just sitting there.
With the friends?
Yeah.
So they are sometimes. Yeah. My son is not here.
Oh.
Mama, no one's going.
She wasn't going to come.
She wasn't able to see it. She was like, I don't know, it's like you're not creators.
But we need to expect that. Yeah, actually, I feel like I'm saying it shows some interest. I don't know. Some of them are really well. I don't know.
Like, I want to take a picture of him and send it to my son. See? It's like, no, that's it's nice to actually see these people like get a sense of it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A couple of housekeeping things for the people who are seated closest to the camera, just in case there's anybody who comes in and changes seats. That microphone is going to pick up, so please be mindful of what you're saying, and so that way it's not picking up everybody except for the people who are talking. Also, for any of the panelists or Mr. Cheelan and I, when we're moving around, if we can please make sure we keep this clear because the camera is focused on the stage. All right. Just wait. Do we need a seat somewhere else? Do you want to sit over here?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all for attending our Roadmap to Reaches. This is an exciting event. For those who don't know me, my name is Trisha Johnson, and on behalf of the counseling team and our senior panelists, we'd like to thank you for coming here this afternoon. This is really exciting, and I'm really proud of these seniors because this event is actually a product of these seniors seated before you today. So this is not something that the counseling department has put together. It's something that these guys have put together to help you guys with information, and we are co-hosting with them. So, well, thank you. They are here to talk to you about important questions that you guys often ask, that our counseling team helps you with, but now you're going to get firsthand information from the people who have gone through different scenarios to get to where they're going now. I'm going to hand it to Mr. Cheelan, and then our panelists will introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Jeff Cheelan. I'm one of the counselors here. Thank you guys for coming.
Hi, I'm Jay, and I'm going to Pomona College to play on the golf team.
Hi, I'm Ayan Hussain. I'm going to Johns Hopkins to study public health.
Hi, I'm Evie. I'm most likely going to be studying biology at UC Berkeley.
Hi, my name is Dana Rasim, and I might go study at NYU for game design or UAL.
Hello, my name is Gavin. I'm studying economics at Vanderbilt. I've been at DAA for 12 years.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I've been at DAA for 4 years, and I'll be heading to Columbia University to study business and engineering.
Hi, I'm Madalena. I've been at DAA for 4 years, and I'm going to Duke University for biomedical engineering.
Hi, I'm Camille. I've been at DAA for 4 years, and I'll be heading to Cornell to study econ and math in the fall. So just to inform you of how this session is going to work, I will be moderating it with Ms. Johnson and Mr. Cheelan. We have 5 sections that we've divided this panel into, and then we'll have time at the end to address each of your questions. So to start off, we're going to be looking at application strategy and process. So just to begin, I think for the US, something that makes it very unique is that it's really a holistic process, and also when you apply, there's so many different universities and colleges in the United States. So what you'll get in one region is going to be so different to the university that maybe you visited or seen before online. So when I was initially researching for colleges, I had the chance to actually take tours to visit colleges in person last March during the spring break, and for current sophomores or juniors, I would highly recommend this experience because I think that actually being on campus at a lot of these universities either confirmed that, yes, I did want to apply here, or actually being there made me realize I didn't like the kind of feel when I was there. And I think that is really important because you need to keep in mind you're going to be there for the next 4 years, and you need to take into account like the student body, the well-being, and obviously different programs. So going to these unis will definitely help that. But I also really use as well research online. So there are many different websites when you're initially creating your college list, like College Niche, the FIS Guide. Also just online, you can use LinkedIn and really just find an alum or a person who currently attends that university to just email them and reach out to them to ask a bit about their insight at that university. But also online tours are also very useful for that. Now we're going to be looking at early decision and timing. So I'd like to pass the microphone to Gavin. Could you please share your experience with this?
Hold on, Camille. The good fit. So everything that Camille said, absolutely. But one of the things that's incredibly important for you guys to be considering when you're considering your universities is what is a good fit for you. So what happens is often we'll have students or parents getting really excited about a particular university, but not actually knowing if the program that the student wants to pursue is at that university. And then beyond that, it's more than that, because no matter where you guys go to university, it's going to be 3 or 4 years. You're more than just a student in that classroom. So what else is going to make you happy? We often look at rankings, but one of the things with a ranking is it's more important to look at the ranking for the program that you want to pursue versus the ranking of the university. And then also thinking about what else do you want to get out of that university? Beyond the degree, do you want a university where you have your own room, or are you okay with a roommate? Do you want a university that has a small classroom setting like this, where your professor is going to know your name and notice if you're not in class? Or are you okay with an auditorium style with 1,500 students where your professor's not even going to know if you're going to be there? That's really important for those of you who know that you need accountability. And how you'll know that, how many of you need your parents to wake you up in the morning? That's not accountability. So think about that. Also think about your hobbies, what you like to do. Does the campus offer student activities you like, or does the community outside? If you're, as an example, somebody who really likes mountain biking, well, then going to the University of Miami is probably not one of your best choices, because outside of the classes, you're not going to have your hobby for you to be able to do. So please make sure you consider what the best fit is, also to include financial. The worst thing you want to do is apply to a bunch of universities that you can't actually afford to attend.
Okay, so I'll speak about ED, and then also Ayan and Jay will also touch on the ED aspect. So there are a few, sections or like timing that you apply to universities. You start with ED1. So ED is called early decision. It's a binding agreement. So in other words, if you get into your ED school, you have to go. Let's say if I ED'd to Northwestern and I got in, then I would have to go to Northwestern. So with my experience, I ED'd to Northwestern and I got rejected. So therefore, even if I wanted to go, I can't because I got rejected. And then after that, you have EA, and what I did is ED2, and then obviously regular decision at the very end. Early action is just that you're applying to a university earlier, and but it's not binding, and you're able to apply to many EA schools for early action, while ED you're only allowed to apply to one. ED2, you submit that application at the same time around early action, or sometimes with your regular decisions, which you're also only allowed to apply to one, and if you get in, you also must go. For my experience, I applied to Vanderbilt ED2, I got in, therefore I was binded to go to Vanderbilt. And then regular decision is also like EA, you're allowed to apply to as many as you want, and then choose at the end which one you would like to go to. I think Ayan and Jay can probably talk to you guys about some of the more popular ED2 choices for schools and their experience with ED2.
So I got into Johns Hopkins for ED2, and I applied to Princeton REA, which is at the same time as ED1. So REA is similar to ED1, but the only difference is that it's not binding to go to the school if you get in. And I think I'm a good example of the good fit here, because when I applied to Princeton, I mainly applied because of its location. I used to live in New Jersey, and Princeton is very close to my house, but Princeton didn't have a major for me. So I don't think I was a good fit for Princeton, and I got rejected because why would they take someone whose application was geared towards public health, but they didn't have a public health major? And when applying to Johns Hopkins is #1 in the US for public health. So my application was a much better fit for Johns Hopkins, and ED2 worked out well for me.
Right, and the other thing for early decision is that there's certain schools that tend to fill their classes like more strongly with early decision applicants. So, for example, I know the University of Chicago would take a large proportion of their class through early decision, whereas others may not favor it as much. So you maybe need to do research into that when deciding your early decision school to give you the best chance. And if any of you are going through the athletic recruitment process, you're most likely going to have to ED to that school so that the coach knows you're going to come if they sort of invest their trust into bringing you into their program and helping you get into the university.
Thank you for that. Now we will be discussing some of the panelists' most challenging experiences. So I'd like to pass the mic to Sophia and Madalena to discuss their journeys.
So at least for me, one of the biggest challenges was figuring out what my niche or what I'm bringing to the table. And so for all of the students who are in middle school or are freshmen and sophomores, I suggest you use these years to figure out what you actually like to do. You don't want to try to max out every extracurricular possible and try to copy what the students who got into Ivy Leagues and stuff like that do. You need to do what you like and delve really deep into that, which is what I did. So I discovered early on that I was really passionate about entrepreneurship and building things, and that's what I did for the next 5 years. So if you can do that early on, I would recommend you do that, because that's what the universities are actually looking for. They're looking for someone authentic who can bring expertise to the table. So I would suggest that's what you do, and start as early as possible. Join as many clubs as possible and see what you truly like.
adding on to that, I think I'm going to talk a little bit more about the challenge and the process, more so when you're in grade 11 and grade 12. For me, because I was also applying to the UK, and I'm also an IB student, so I had things like the extended essay, TOK essay due. For me, it was very important to keep in mind all of the deadlines, because the UK, the IB, and the early application deadlines for the UK overlap a lot. So it was kind of trying to see like how you could organize your time, and also taking into consideration the SAT, which I know, or I hope many of you juniors have started taking it. For me, that was particularly challenging. I was not very good at the SAT particularly, so I had to take it 4 or 5 times to get the score I wanted. So I would also say it's something you should keep in mind.
Now we will be moving on to essays and personal statements. So Gavin, could you please talk a little bit about your experience with the Common App essay and just essay writing in general?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, for the US application, you have to write in a Common App personal statement, which is maximum 650 words. There are 8 prompts that you're able to choose from, and your essay should adhere to whichever prompt you choose. So for me, I chose a prompt regarding growth. So I basically started off with like a hook about a trauma experience that happened in my youth. My experience is a bit special because I don't think it's something that many other students have experienced. So I started with something that the admissions officer, when they read my essay, they probably wouldn't have never seen before. So that's what I also kind of recommend you guys to do. When you write your essay, yes, there are a lot of good essays out there that you can kind of like copy or look at. I know a lot of us might know the one about hitting the letter S and a lot of other essays. But the thing about these is that once they're used, it's really hard to really replicate it and make it better. And the admissions officer will know that you are copying or replicating another of the essays. So when you're writing your own essay, try to be authentic. Try to write something that's really just about you and isn't about someone else. When someone reads that essay, they should know that yes, they're talking about you as a person, and not have the idea that, oh, this essay could be for her and also could be for someone else. So really tailor the Common App essay to yourself, because at the end of the day, it is a personal statement. So it should be about your life story, how you grew or what you developed over your entire lifetime, and what you want the admissions officer to know about you.
Just also something to add on to what Gavin said. I did a program 2 years ago at Yale. It's called YYGS, Yale Young Global Scholars, and we had an admissions information session with a Yale admissions officer for Florida, I think. And so she was saying that when you're initially drafting your personal statement, you really want to take time to think about something that best fits your profile, but also your story as well. And so something that I found really helpful when I was initially beginning to write my personal statement was I wrote a timeline of like my whole life, but I stopped it in the middle with where I was today, and then I continued it to who I thought I was going to be like in 50 years. And so for me, that really helped because I had like an A4 paper and I just had to fit in the most important parts of my life on like half of that first, and then project who I really wanted to be into that. And so through that process and that like activity, I was able to actually identify a lot of potential topics for me to discuss, and then I ended up finding my personal statement topic.
Camille, I'm going to interrupt really quick. We have some people who don't have a seat, but we have some seats available. If you guys are on the outsides, like this middle row and the back row, if you guys can scoot over, and in the back row, move your bags. Yes, so you guys don't have to sit on the stairs. Thank you.
Now I'd like to pass the mic to Jay and Sophia to discuss what they believe really helps with making essays stand out. You can begin.
So Gavin touched on being authentic in your essays, and that's something that I found to be really important is, definitely staying away from the use of AI and trying to they're not looking at how well you can write an essay from an English perspective, but maybe more about your character, the personal growth you've been through, and how that's going to help you make a contribution to their university and represent the university's name in the future. So I think that comes down more to telling your story in the best way possible. And another piece of advice I would give is people that you really trust and know you can rely on. I'd recommend getting advice from them for your essays, especially over AI, and keeping maybe a small group of trusted people, perhaps a couple close friends and family members who can call you out if anything you say doesn't represent who you are, and can give you pieces of advice to best represent yourself, especially that can be especially important when they know you as a person throughout your whole life.
Adding on to what Jay has said, I think it's really important to have a central theme, which is what I did. So throughout all of my essays, not just my personal statement, I had sort of thought about what I wanted the admissions officers to think about me. And so I created my own sort of persona or identity about what I envisioned they would see. So that central line or thread is important to have in your essays. And I know this is a little bit strange, but I started my essays really early on. I started them in January of junior year. And that's because I really took time to think about who I was. I only started drafting them around summertime, but I thought about sort of the different ideas that I could add into my personal statement, cool different niche topics that I could bring into the table. And also, you cannot get sidetracked by exemplars that you see online. As Gavin mentioned, you know, these kids, it's a one-shot type of thing. You don't want to look like a copycat. So keep that in mind. Start early again. I feel like I'm echoing the same thing, but if you can do that with everything, I would suggest you do.
I think the next portion that we'll segue into is using resources and how to best work with the counselors at school. So I'll pass the mic to Mr. Cheelan and Ms. Johnson just to discuss what DAA offers and how you can best leverage your use of the counselor.
I'm going to chime in really quick to kind of piggyback off of what Sophia was saying, but starting early can actually happen as early as grade 9 with your essay writing, because when you're in grade 9 and grade 10, even grade 11, if you are in the Common Core English, which is grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, there's always going to be a creative writing assignment. This is not going to happen in an AP class or an IB class, so it's when you have the advantage of the grade 9, 10, and 11 English, take advantage, because if you have a creative writing assignment, go online, look at what one of the Common App essay questions are, and start working on that, because you can be using that throughout the years to kind of continue and adjust, but then you're also going to have that as an assignment you're working on in English.
And real quick, can I get you guys raise your hand if you had to write supplemental essays as well? So another reason to consider starting a bit earlier is that not only will you maybe have to write the Common App essay, right? Depending on what school you apply to, you may have to write 1, 2, 3, 10 extra essays, right? So the more time in advance you're preparing for that, looking into the types of essays you might have to write, obviously getting a head start is going to help you with that.
Mr. Cheelan, sorry to interrupt, but I think Madalena has some very useful information to share.
Oh, I also wanted to say I applied to, well, not a lot of U.S. schools, but a good amount. And the good thing was that a lot of the supplemental essays kind of overlap. So, and a lot of universities, they don't change their supplemental essays over time. So for my dream school or my favorite university, I actually started thinking about the prompts like 2 years in advance. And then I could use, for example, Duke is not a very good example, but I did my application in like 2 days. And I was able to do my supplemental essays because they all overlapped with all the essays I had done previously. So it's good to have that. Like prepare early, and then you also have the other supplemental essays. And then it's kind of like a structure where in the beginning it seems like it's going to be really hard to write all of those, but as you write more and more you get better at them and you can do them more easily.
And sorry, just as like a quick change in direction here, something else that you guys can consider is asking for expertise from your teachers. So for a while I wanted to add some physics, I know it's really nerdy, but into my personal statement because I thought it could help develop, you remember this? It could help develop what I wanted for my essay. So I asked my physics teacher to actually check if the physics was correct and if they could understand what I was saying. I also asked my English teachers for advice to see if things flowed. So this is something that you can consider as well. Asking your friends, asking your family, having a lot of meetings with your counselors as well. So just get people to read your essays that you trust, as Jay mentioned earlier, but so that you can get alternative perspectives.
Thank you. So, I mean, that leads really well into using resources. So obviously you can use your teacher resources to help with some of the essay content, as Sophia was just saying. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what your counselors can do for you at DAA. So hopefully you've already been meeting with your counselor over the course of the last year, 2 years, however many years you've been here. So hopefully your counselor is getting a chance to get to know you. But I'm going to let you know, if you're not aware yet, some of the resources we have that can help you throughout your time in high school and as you're preparing for your applications. So from the audience, can I get you guys to raise your hand if you attended any lunch and learns this year, last year? Okay, good. So then you're aware we do these lunch and learns once a week, twice a week, however often throughout the year. But we cover a lot of different topics. They could be about, we have topics about essay writing. We have topics going over each of the application portals. We have topics about how your application might differ depending on what region of the world you're applying to. So UK versus Europe versus Canada versus America, whatever. So there's tons of different topics we cover throughout the year. So we definitely encourage you to attend those during your lunchtime, and it's a great time to ask questions. We have our university guidebooks. So we have one for our juniors heading into senior year. We have one for our sophomores heading into junior year. Then we have one for, grade 9 and 10 students. So underclassmen, junior guidebook, and then a senior guidebook. So each of those guidebooks has tons of different pieces of information that can help you preparing for university applications, and also on the applications themselves, how to go about linking Unifrog to Common App, other things like that. So definitely take a look at the guidebook. With the guidebooks, we have summer and spring and winter resource guides, so things you can be doing over the breaks to help you. Presentations on university planning, 4-year academic planning. Now those you can start as early as grade 9, because again, to get into certain schools, and especially kind of the schools that are harder to get into, you really need to start building your profile starting in grade 9. So it's not just about the grades you're going to earn in school, but it's about what are you doing outside of the school, what activities are you getting involved in, what leadership roles are you taking on, and I'm sure they're going to talk about some of that in a minute. We have presentations on things like time management, so if you're struggling there as well. We can help you with mock interviews. So I know I've done mock interviews with some of them. So as you're preparing for your applications, some applications or some universities are going to require you to do interviews. So we can help you mock interview. We can take a look at your CV or resume. We can help you with proofreading your essays or coming up with ideas to write essays. So I know I'll go back and forth with students all the time about the essays they're writing, give them feedback and comments and things like that. So we can definitely help with that. And then there's 2 things I want to point out that hopefully you're aware of, but if you're not, these are 2 really good resources we have for you, which are our University College Contact Spreadsheet. So as you hopefully have noticed, we have something like 200 plus universities that come to DAA every year to recruit you guys, and let you get to meet them and learn about their campuses. So when they leave, they provide us their contact info. So if you ever have a question for a university, first check that resource, check the spreadsheet, see if that university has already come here. So we might have the contact for the literal representative who might be reading your application down the road. So we have tons of resources, or tons of contacts you can look at there. Then we also have a student college contact spreadsheet that has former students from DAA have given us their emails, and maybe they're at a college that you want to attend. So you can reach out to them and ask them questions about what it's like on campus. Why did they choose that university? Things like that. So these are really good resources for you to take advantage of while you're at DAA.
I want to piggyback off of that to say it can become very overwhelming with the amount of resources that we actually have to offer. And one of the things that we find is we get a lot of questions over and over from parents or from students, and we've already provided that resource, but it's because we know we have so much that you might get lost in it, which goes back to one of the important things somebody over here said is making the meetings with the counselors, because we can easily point you in the direction of where in the resource that's helpful for you. I think one of I would say one of our biggest resources would go back to the the senior guidebook, junior guidebook, and underclassmen guidebook, because with those, they identify what each grade level should be working on for university, but it has links to everything. So that's probably your best first starting point.
Evie, would you like to discuss a little bit about your journey working with Mr. Cheelan?
So throughout my application process, I regularly met up with Mr. Cheelan to discuss my university application. So this included, I basically, when I was applying to universities, whenever I had questions, I would make a list of questions, and during our one-to-one meeting, I would go through all of the questions and ask him to clear things up. And this helped me a lot because the application portal can be very confusing sometimes. It can be confusing with which information to put where and stuff, and he really helped me clear that up. And not only that, but he also helped me to get my feedback and suggestion on my essays, and also to get into contact with universities. So what I encourage you guys to do is to meet up with your counselors regularly from early on to make sure that you stay on track and you get your questions are cleared up, because later on it can get very hectic. So it's better to just meet up with them regularly to ensure that you are on track with everything.
And touching on a different point, so something else that you're going to work on with your counselors is letters of recommendation. So at least for Columbia and a lot of universities, you're going to need 2 letters of rec at least from teachers. And so it's good to find teachers who know you really well, but you can sort of guide them. So I had one-on-ones with my teachers to figure out how I could best explain to them what I would like to be conveyed. And they did their jobs, and I'm not allowed to see the letter, and they're not allowed to share it with me, but at least they knew more or less the pointers that I would like the university to know about me. You can also ask for 3 letters of recommendation and then pick and choose which ones you think are most ideal for certain universities. Some require a humanities letter of rec and a math letter of rec, some require whatever you want. So it's good to ask for a couple as well so that you can pick and choose whatever's best for you.
Jay, do you want to add something?
Also, for most U.S. universities, your counselors are probably going to write a letter of recommendation for you, so forming a close relationship with them over your high school years is not only helpful for them to guide you throughout the application process, but they're also going to be vouching for you to help you get into the university you want to. So it's very important that they know who you are and you differentiate yourself to them compared to your peers.
Something I'd like to add as well is for Dartmouth specifically, they allow you to submit a peer letter of recommendation. And so when I found out about this, I asked my friend in advance. They say that you can ask anyone really in general that knows you well or would be able to portray a side of you that isn't necessarily reflected by your teachers or your counselor. So I would say if you want to apply to schools, make sure that you research the different requirements that they have for letter of recommendations. And then one other thing I'd quickly like to touch upon is interviews. So a lot of U.S. universities offer interviews with alumni. It's never with admissions officers. Some universities don't offer interviews, but they allow you to submit a video. So when I applied to UChicago, I had to make a video to kind of showcase my personality that would otherwise have been shown in an interview. So I would say, again, using the counselors because they can really help you prepare. I remember there's a really long document that DAA provides you with interview questions for US and UK universities. So this is really important in my opinion. And also just keep in mind an interview isn't guaranteeing you admission. I had interviews to schools that I didn't get in. I also had interviews, or I didn't have an interview, for example, to a school that I got in. But for example, Madalena got in. So this was with Duke University. So just, again, don't compare yourself to other people who are getting interviews and you're not getting one. And then really use the counselors.
Okay. In terms of the counselors, one of the benefits of us, because some of our students here, some of you guys may have hired an outside counselor, and we do very similar roles. There's things that the outside counselor cannot do that you still need to work with your school counselor for. But one of the benefits of the school counselor is, number one, we can do everything from the beginning to the end. But what can set us apart as well is we have a lot more connections more often than the outside counselors. And it's simply because we're in the school. We have over 200, sometimes over 300 universities that visit DAA. So we get that daily interaction with them. We get that rapport with them. We get to learn more things that sometimes the outside counselors don't have that opportunity to, simply because they're not in a school. So they don't have that daily interaction to build those relationships with. And I'm going to give an example. For example, there is on the UC website, so for the UCs in California, on their website it says very clearly for an international student what the requirements are. And one of the requirements says you need 1 full year of a fine art credit. But because of our relationships with those reps, we know that's not actually true. It's on the website. But we know what's more important is, number one, you have to have that 3.4 GPA. And number two, you really need to have leadership experience. Those are the two non-negotiables, but that 1 full year credit, even though it says it on the website, is actually not a requirement. And we know that because they come here. We know that because we get to ask these questions. Another thing I want to talk about is what's called a cookie cutter application. So we attended an event with Yale, UPenn, and Dartmouth. This was last year. Many of you might have also gone. They had a session for families in the community, and then they had a session for counselors before that. And one of the things that they said was it's very clear when they're getting applications from families who hire some of the outside counseling agencies, because there are things that are cookie cutter. So it's the same thing over and over and over again, which doesn't make a unique application. One of the things that people talked up here about is making sure that your essay, making sure your application is unique. Now, it doesn't mean just because you hire an outside counselor that you're gonna have a cookie cutter, but one of the things you wanna be mindful of is, does somebody give you a list of things that you need to complete, but it's the same list that goes to every student. For example, they say if they get something that says a passion project, automatically they know it's coming from somebody who's hired somebody, because when they get the passion project and they get different information and it shows that it's only happened in the last 2 years, it's more often because they've hired somebody that says you need to do XYZ. Versus one of the things that we discussed is the student profile. So yes, can you have a passion project? Can you have a research project? Absolutely. But what shows more depth and what's going to make your profile stronger is when you are creating those activities from grade 9. And I think I'm jumping ahead. We'll get to that in a minute. But we'll get to that. So it's just extremely important to work with the counselors, even if you hire an outside counselor, because there's a ton of information that we have as well that's going to be a bit different from them.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We will now be moving on to academics and extracurriculars. So we'll first have Jay explain his process of being recruited as an athlete and how he was able to showcase this in his application.
All right, so if any of you want to play sports in college, there's 2 real things that you have to look at, which would be your athletic fit and your academic fit. So from an athletic perspective, you need to be looking at how you're performing in the sport that you're playing in 10th and 11th grade. And then you could even look at the results from the universities that you want to go to and then compare yourselves to the people on those teams. And you need to pretty much be performing at that level. Maybe slightly below that is fine because you have time to develop as an athlete. And then an academic fit is obviously, for example, the Harvard coach specified that you need a 1500 SAT and a 3.8 unweighted GPA to get recruited. So people think you can just throw a ball far or something like that and get in, but you also need to have the academic piece. And then once you've sort of identified where you are academically, what division would be best for you regarding the Division 1, 2, or 3, and the schools within those divisions, you can start to email coaches, where you can find their emails via university sports like roster websites, and I think it's a pretty good indication of their interest. I mean, you'll get that pretty quickly, where for me, if I reached out to a top Division 1 school, I just knew I wouldn't get a response from them because I'm not at that level, whereas maybe a lower level Division 1 school or a Division 2 or Division 3 school would pretty quickly respond to me, showing a high level of interest, wanting to get on a call with me and interview me. So you'll get an idea of that pretty quickly. But even if you're not looking to play a sport or get recruited, I'd really recommend getting involved in different sports in high school, because it allows you to form close friendships and you get different skills from it, like time management, balancing school and your sport, developing leadership, learning from others, learning how to lose and recover from that, developing a sense of humility as well. These are all really important and transferable skills that you learn from sports that can be really useful to represent or write about in a university application, beyond just getting an athletic recruitment spot, which can be really challenging, and maybe everyone doesn't want to pursue that.
Now I quickly want to pass the mic to Dana. Dana is a very, an amazing artist at our school, and so she got accepted to, I would say, one of the most prestigious universities for arts in both England and the United States. So could you please just explain your process and experience with that?
Okay. For art, I'd say the process is slightly different because you obviously have to focus on your portfolio. And the portfolio for me is very different for the UK versus the US. For the US, oftentimes they don't require any descriptions for the art pieces, but rather like the media that you're using. And I'd say that the portfolio is something really important to focus on early on because, especially as an IB student, it's very overwhelming to be focusing on your portfolio at the same time that your EEs and your TOK essays due. So the way the portfolio works for the US is that you typically, the university will give you a website called Slideroom, where you'll have to log in using the university portal. It's typically linked on the Common App under the university. But how the Slideroom works is essentially you upload your pieces, you add like the media description and the titles, and they typically have the number of pieces that they'll ask you for. Sometimes it could be 11, sometimes it could be up to 20. And I'd suggest that if you are going to apply for arts or any major in the art field, I'd say that it's best to look at mixed media use, especially a variety of different medias and experimentation, because they like to see how versatile you are with like the arts. So especially for me, I had a mix of photography, digital art, 3D art. Sometimes I'd even include a film. But yeah, I'd say that the experience is a bit rigorous, and that you should start the portfolio probably in your junior year, but it's good to actually add on. I used some of my pieces actually from middle school, but they do like more recent pieces, so yeah.
Something I'd also quickly like to add is you can also add an arts supplement to your application, even if you aren't like applying for an arts program. So for example, I really enjoy photography, and it's something I spend quite a bit of my free time doing. And so for some of the schools, I had the option of submitting like 5 or 10 of my photographs. And I also had a friend who really enjoys piano, and she writes her own music. And so she submitted this to a lot of the schools. And I think that even if necessarily it isn't at the highest level that you're seeing people apply for these specific programs, I think some admissions officers can still appreciate it. So once when the UChicago representative came to our school, I remember asking him about this specifically, and he told me, he said, I would really encourage it because it shows another side of you that necessarily they can't see always through your essays and everything. So it's something for you to consider. I would like to now pass the mic to Ayan to discuss the IB and AP diploma pathway.
So this information is more for underclassmen, but after 10th grade, DAA offers 3 academic pathways, the full two academic pathways, like the full IB diploma and then the US high school diploma. But within the US high school diploma, you can take fully, US classes, or you can mix it with AP and IB classes in the US high school pathway. So when I was in 10th grade and I was deciding what I wanted to do, I was oriented towards STEM, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I found the full IB diploma pathway to be a bit too restrictive for me in exploring STEM, because the IB diploma pathway only allows you to take 2 sciences maximum, and I was interested in taking physics, chemistry, biology, computer science. So I found the US high school diploma pathway better for me, and I was able to take these sciences at a higher level, at college level, whether it's AP or IB, And a common misconception that I think many people have is that the full IB diploma is automatically, better suited for universities. But the thing I think that admissions officers put more weight in is the rigor of your courses. So as long as you're taking these AP and IB classes, you're displaying to the admissions officers that you're taking rigorous courses and you're able to academically challenge yourself. And that's very important when you're trying to display that you're a good candidate for top universities and that you're able to take the workload and that you have those time management skills of balancing all these classes and that you're a good fit with the university.
Thank you, Ayan. Now I would like to pass the mic to Gavin to discuss your journey with extracurriculars. Also, you've been at DA for a very long time, so how you've amassed leadership roles and how you showed that in your application.
So I think a lot of the students here in high school know that me and Camille are both co-presidents. So in my application, I had a lot of leadership roles, and I think they really did help to my actual university application. Like Ms. Johnson mentioned, leadership is a very big part for the UCs as well, and in general to the university that you're applying to. So the thing is, though, university, they really look at quality over quantity. So you don't want to just do so much things in 1 year or 2 years and just cram it into your application process and university applications, because that really wouldn't help that much. Yes, you may be part of like 7 different clubs in DAA, but if you're not showing growth and not showing time commitment to these clubs since like grade 9 or 10, and you are only doing it in senior year, then that really won't stand out to the university, to the admission officers. So really develop extracurricular activities over a long period of time. And if you're at a point where like you're already in grade 11 and you don't know what to do, it's okay. Like doesn't mean that you're there's no faith and all hope is lost. But I'm just saying that like you are trying to get something that has quality and will really help you for your university application. I do a lot, so it's ironic that I'm saying this, but see what you're passionate about and see what you really want to do. If you're really interested in robotics, then yes, create a robotics club in grade 10 or grade 9, and then develop it, make people join, and then really see if you can maybe even spread it across the UAE and bring it to other countries. Me and Ayan, we worked on something called Monsoon Outreach and Relief Efforts, where within the globe, collaborating with other schools in Japan and the Philippines, we were able to raise money for people in India, Japan, and Philippines who are suffering from monsoons. So it's really these projects that have a global impact, or something that you really developed over the years and really show that you are passionate about it, rather than just something that you're doing for the sake of university applications.
With that, I'm going to go back to the student profile. And one of the things that we've had a representative from a university come here who we've not received an offer from. So in all the DAA years, we've never had an offer extended to a student to this university. And the rep specifically told us is because our kids' profiles are not strong enough. Academically, they're solid, but their profiles aren't strong enough because they're not starting early enough. So just like Gavin was saying, yes, all hope is not lost if you're just starting in grade 11. However, for these elite universities, for universities that have a very low acceptance rate, they're looking for what you were interested in and when. So starting in grade 9, and going back to what Gavin also said, quality over quantity. A big mistake that we see a lot of our students making is they just join a lot of different activities, they do a lot of volunteering, they do a lot of internships, they do a lot of things, but it's not necessarily focused. And it doesn't have to be focused, because a great thing about the US is it's a holistic application. So they're looking at a lot of different things. But for the more selective universities, they're looking for that strategic interest from an early age. So instead of joining 5 different clubs or changing your club every year, joining 2 clubs in grade 9, and if you really like it, stick to them. You don't need to join more. You just move up in leadership. If you started a club, fantastic. If you didn't, then work your way up to the president or vice president. That's going to show a better determination than you just joining different clubs every year. So you want to make sure that you are looking at what is going to strengthen your application holistically, but also with a direction. Going back to what Mr. Cheelan said with our lunch and learn activities, if you did not have an opportunity to go to lunch and learns, it's not a problem because you have access to all of those presentations. And in one of those presentations, it's called How to Build a Student Profile. And we've given you an outline of like a profile that you can kind of mimic and read. But the best thing to do is meet with your counselor. Meet with us so we can start helping you look at what's going to make you a strong candidate.
I would like to address Evie now. Could you please discuss your experience with research, and then afterwards, Sophia, maybe you can discuss internships.
So I applied as a biology-related majors to almost all of my schools. So my application was largely themed around showing my passion for biology and medicine and how I've used that passion to make an impact in the society and in the medical field. And so one of the main activity that I've done is a research. So the summer before 11th grade, I went to a university in my country, so local university, and I worked with a professor there to do a research on potential cure for Alzheimer's disease. And I wrote and published a research paper in a journal. And other activities that helped me show my passion was something like founding a medical club in the school, joining and working in an NGO, doing an internship for a technology startup that is related to medicine. And I think these activities not only showed my interest for biology and medical field, but also showed how I can apply my passion across different fields, which US universities really value as they're looking for well-rounded applicants and students. So one of my advice is for you to explore different fields and find your passion from early on, and to apply your passion to different fields and activities so you can show them that you can make a real impact in the society, and do the activities not just for the sake of your application, but to really reflect who you are and your passion.
So I did a few internships over the last couple of years. As was mentioned earlier, it's really important to focus on quality over quantity. So these were things that didn't last a month, but instead a few years. And you can build a relationship with these entrepreneurs, that was my case, which can both help you with your applications, but can also help you outside of school when you go out into the real world and you need a network. So the way that you can go about finding internships is, again, being super resourceful. So things like using LinkedIn, sending direct messages to random people that you think have the same passions and interests as you. Also using networks that your parents have. This is especially for you guys. You have to use every resource that you can. Ask your friends as well what they're able to get, leverage their networks, but it's using the resources available to you to get the best outcome possible, and trying to delve into the internship as much as possible. The skills that you can gain from an internship go much beyond the essays that you write and what you put in your resume, but the fact is, as Jay was talking about transferable skills, you can learn to be more gritty, be smarter about the types of decisions that you're doing. Overall, you are developing yourself as a person as well as your college apps.
Specifically for the art field, I did an internship with a company that's known for designing some of the schools here in the UAE and in the Middle East, which is Kids Inc. And I was able to understand how the field works, like especially in the design industry. I take IBDT, but it doesn't, by involving myself in the field, I was able to understand how different sectors of the design industry work together. And I was able to use that in my application and some of my portfolio in order to show like what I learned and also like the meat of my experience. And I feel like that really creates a niche for students, especially in their applications, because it showcases how you will work in the field and how you can collaborate with others. And then also for the activities, I'd say that especially for art, a lot of the activities they like to see are centered towards the art field, but experimenting with different medias, like I mentioned before. So the good thing that me and Camille were involved in was something called the Art Society, and it was a long-lasting club that we actually had passed down from a prior graduate, Sabina. But basically we established something of like a legacy in order to pass down, which creates like a sense of like having this longevity, and it shows that we were able to establish like a community revolved around the arts. And so we were able to collaborate with a bunch of different people and students in our grade that are involved in different fields of art, and I feel like that showcases how we can all learn from each other, and it benefited our applications greatly. So.
Also, I wanted to add one more thing. I only did one internship at a lab in Portugal, but I did it for 3 summers. So the PI of that lab really knew me very well. And then she actually wrote me a recommendation letter, because on your application, in addition to your teacher rec letters, you can also get other like additional rec letters. And this was really good, not only because she could talk about me in the lab setting, but also as a way to like not prove that I did an internship, but I was talking to like some different admissions officers who came to DAA, and they're saying that it's also important to have some kind of proof of what you're doing. So if you can't get the person who was like supervising you in your internship to write you a letter, mention it in your counselor can mention it, or your teachers can mention it. It's just a way of like supporting what you're putting in your application.
I just also wanted to talk quickly about summer programs. So I think something that U.S. universities look is that you're doing things over your summer. So whether that's like playing a sport, pursuing one of your extracurricular interests, doing research, internships, or even just a summer program, that highlights that you really show interest and you genuinely want to do things beyond just like studying at school. And so for me, I did 3 summer programs, and I would say it wasn't just like learning that was very helpful. It was also being able to talk to different professors at those programs, but then also meet different students. So for example, when I did the program at Yale, I was able to meet people from all over the world, some of which were older, so they were currently in the application process, and I was just coming out of like sophomore year, and so it was really helpful to be able to get their insight on other programs that they had been to, what experiences that they had as well. And last summer I did a credit course at Cornell. So some universities, they offer courses that you can take from the university, and you can get actual college credit for these. And so I would really recommend that to any of you that, for example, want to go to a college that offers these courses, because I think it also shows to the university that you are able to perform at a high level with these courses that they're offering for current undergraduates. So I know that several universities do offer this, so I would recommend that you do look into this, because it is helpful. But there are also free online courses as well. So Coursera is something that I also took some courses in grade 9, and it's really useful. So you can have tons of different courses ranging from like coding, anything to do with the arts, and they're actually by universities, so in the US, so you have a lot of different options, and I think that's really useful as well.
So for everyone who's in high school right now, your summers are no joke. Okay, so this is the time that you get off of school, but it's really not, and I'm going to be very honest here, it's really not a time for you to just relax and lounge. As much as that is important, you also need to manage your time wisely, because universities are interested to see what you're doing, not just within school bounds, but also outside. So things like community summer programs, courses that you can do online, internships, anything that you can do during your summers that you can talk about is really relevant and important. So just as an asterisk or as a point that you keep in mind, please make your summers super useful.
I know Malena mentioned her letter of recommendation from her, like the professor she did her internship with, and yes, you will have a professor during like a summer program. Like I did one at Harvard and I did one at Wharton. I did have a professor for like those 2 weeks, but in reality, is a letter of recommendation from a professor who's only known me for 2 weeks and add anything to my application? No. So like Madeleine has known her professor for 3 summers, so like at least a few months. That's why she or he was able to give her a letter of recommendation. But one from someone that you've only known for a couple of weeks isn't really going to add much to your application. So just know that it is not required that you get one from someone outside. The teachers in DAA and our counselors are equally as qualified. They've known us for a very long amount of time, so they're more than able to give us a good letter of recommendation that will help our application.
So now we're going to move on to a section dedicated to final decisions and reflections. So I'd like to, Lena.
So after I finished my entire college process and I got into a couple of universities, I had a really hard time choosing which universities I would go to. And it was actually very interesting because when I was applying, I had a very clear ranking in my head. Johns Hopkins was actually first in my list. And then it was not until I got in and actually went to visit those universities that I actually decided it was not first in my list anymore. So, yeah, and this is a really good example because I tend to be very stubborn, and it was just good to see all of those reflections. Dartmouth, which was also an Ivy League, so everyone was telling me oh, go to Dartmouth because of the Ivy League name, but it was actually, so it's kind of just seeing that thing, what Ms. Johnson said about fit, and not only the ranking for your major, but also how you fit in the city. For me, especially because I'm not in the U.S. and my family would not be close. It's not gonna be close to the U.S. So it's I was just looking for a place where I could be for 4 years comfortable. Johns Hopkins is a bit dangerous, so I didn't choose there. And then Duke was actually the last university on my list, and it's where I ended up going. I ended up choosing to go because of the campus feel and the city, and I felt really welcomed there. So
you will usually find out, if you don't get into your school with early decision 1 or 2 or early action, you'll most likely be finding out where you're getting in at the end of March, maybe beginning of April, and then you'll have 1 month to decide. So college decision day in the US is on May 1st. And so for me, something that I really used after I found out all the university offers that I had, I reached out to people that I knew already at these universities, or I searched on LinkedIn. So for example, I had a friend that I knew from a summer program who was a freshman at Duke, so I had a long call with her, and that was really helpful for me because a lot of the time on the college website you'll get information that you wouldn't get otherwise, and so that was very helpful. And then I would say as well, I know Mr. Bruon, if you know the PE teacher, he really loves LinkedIn, and he will really tell you that it's important to start early with LinkedIn, because if you build your profile from the grade 9, that's not something that I did, but in hindsight I think it would have been useful. You're able to reach out to people and have a lot of connections, and just ask someone, would you be willing to have a 15-minute Zoom call with me? And even as you're in the process of deciding what university you want to attend, I would really make use of this. I think it's something perhaps that people don't initially think about, but I would say it is very valuable. We're gonna now move into the last part before the Q&A. So do any of you have any general advice that you would like to give to the parents and underclassmen?
I just want to start off by saying that, yes, I know throughout this entire panel we've been saying start early, build your profile, do this, do that. Please don't have a lot of pressure on you. Yes, I know the university application process is stressful, and if you haven't started early yet, it does not indicate that, oh, I'm not going to get into a good university. It does not indicate that at all. Where you are now, just do your best. Try to be able to build your profile starting from now, and then really get to know the universities, get to know what the process is going to be like. And you might be looking at all these universities and be like, oh, what if I don't get into a top 20 in the US? At the end of the day, university isn't an end point. It's a new starting point. Your life isn't over once you get to university. Well, I'm done. No. You have to really work in university, and then really build your way up. So even if you don't get into your top choice, you can still make sure that you have a good time at the university that you are in the future and really build your profile in that university. So please don't have a lot of stress on your shoulders. The university doesn't indicate who you are, but really it's you who really shape your future.
Gavin kind of stole my talking point. I was going to say, when you're facing rejection, most of us, I think, didn't get into our top choice school. But as you can see, it worked out for all of us. But when you're getting your decisions, I wouldn't say expect rejection, but be prepared for rejection and how you're going to handle that. Because at the end of the day, all these universities are really selective. And you have to be able to get through rejection. And if you get accepted, that's great. It's great for you. But many of us did not get into our top choices. And we're all right. And we're happy with our school.
I want to add on to that. I just want to say don't let rejection stop you from applying to other universities. Because when I got rejected from my ED1 and ED2 school, I thought I wasn't going to get into any of the top universities, but it clearly worked out. So I want to tell you, if you get rejected from your top school, it doesn't mean that you're going to get rejected from other top schools. And also I want to tell you, I want to advise you guys not to compare yourselves to others. So don't let other people's rejection stop you from applying. So don't think, oh, she got rejected from this school, I don't have a chance of getting in. Or don't think, oh, she got accepted into this school, I have a good chance of getting in. Because honestly, the US universities are so random in their application and their results. So I would say just focus on yourself and don't let anything stop you from applying to the universities that you want to.
I also want to re-emphasize that point. I'd just say focus on controlling what you can control in your application process. So things like whether your admissions officer is having a good day when they read your application, or what your friends are doing, or what someone else is telling you. Those things, if you can't control something, what can you do about it? You just need to focus on getting the best grades possible, presenting yourself authentically, and doing what you can to propel yourself for the future and be successful. Whether you go to your dream university or safety, you can still do all of the same things.
Also adding on to what Evie said, and during this process or during the timeline, it's very easy to get competitive. Also with your peers and your friends, or you think oh, my friend is applying here, and you think that only one person from the school can get into. Clearly, from the list you can see this was not the case. Many of us got into the same university. And so it's don't let that competition get into you, because we're all in the same boat and there's more than one spot for people from the same school. So
I also think trust the process and have fun during it. So find things that you really enjoy. Just go all out. But remember, as Gavin said, it is serious, but it's not that serious. There's always a new fresh page that you can turn, things that you can do at university to reach where you actually want to be in the next 10 years. But there will be a lot of unexpected turns throughout this entire process, whether that's at the end point or during the whole journey. But just have fun. Have fun with your friends. Have fun making memories. Have fun figuring out who you are. Just enjoy the process.
I'd like to reiterate a prior point by Jay, which was having a close group of friends. When I was getting my REA Princeton decision, me and Gavin were roaming Barsha at 3 a.m. to pass the time. And when I did get rejected, Gavin gave me the best hug I've ever had. It was like I was drowning in a marshmallow. and that really helped. And after 15 minutes, I was okay. And I was ready to apply to more schools. And I was back to writing my essays for my regular decision schools. So have a close group of friends who can help you out with your essays and help you when you get accepted or you get rejected.
I would just like to add as well, we are here to support you. So at the end of the session, we will give you our email so you can reach out to us next year. We'll also be in that spreadsheet so you can contact us if you need anything. But I do think it's helpful as well if you have friends that are seniors, or even if you just want to talk to us after the panel, knowing what to expect when you get into senior year can be very helpful, because I personally know that the first 2 months or 3 months of senior year was quite difficult, because you have all the IB course load coming, and then you have your early decision or early action school coming up. So just knowing that you and your friends, like, you're all going through the same thing. So it's really not, don't feel alone. And as Ayan mentioned, having like a good group of friends or a strong support system, that is very helpful. And also don't be too discouraged. So even if you have like a dream school, also consider that, I think it's important to consider other universities as well, and not to get so fixated on one, because generally, like, for example, for me, I did early action to Yale, and I was deferred and then rejected. But for me, I ended up finding universities that I also really loved, and knowing that essentially, I know there's like people say rejection is redirection, and it can sound a little bit like cringy, but I think in the end of the day, make sure just to trust yourself, trust your capabilities, know that you've put in the work for the past years, and it will eventually work out. And again, as Gavin said, university is just the point for you to start to grow and explore your interests, especially with the US, because if you can apply for a major, but you might end up completely changing or discovering a topic or field that you've never had the chance to explore in high school. So just keep in mind that it's really your time, and you're probably going to come out of university completely having explored something maybe different that you initially anticipated. So just keep that in mind. I think now we're going to open the floor to questions. So do any of you have any questions you'd like to ask to any of the panelists or the counselors?
It's okay, it's okay. Just by show of hands.
We need to put in the mic
Oh,
so
sorry.
the recording. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. It's actually absolutely amazing. Just for my own information, by show of hands, who's with IB and who's AP?
IB.
Thank you.
Now, I do. Okay. I knew this was going to come up. So, in all fairness, and I'm not saying that any of the people who chose IB would have chosen anything different, this is the first graduating class that would have the opportunity for what's called the AP capstone. And we've built the AP courses over the years. So I don't know if they would have made anything different, but historically speaking, we were strong in IB because those were the courses that we offered. And I don't want you guys to think you have to do IB to get into these universities, because you can do US with just AP, with a strong application, with a good amount of APs, and still get in.
I'd also add that maybe at the time we were picking our courses, DAA didn't offer as many AP courses as we wanted, but DAA is going to continue to develop that and offer more AP courses across different subject areas, so it'll become a more viable option for more people as time progresses.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my daughter is interested in pursuing law for the future and tailoring her application towards that. So what kind of summer internship should she pursue this summer? Like, it's hard to like get with a lawyer at this stage, right? Like, for a summer internship.
Okay, I do know that like some of my friends that are going into law ended up shadowing a lot of like lawyers, or sometimes they'd go into like the firms and they'd shadow some of like the professionals, so they'd learn like how it works, because you can always put that into your CV and your application, talk about how you shadowed some of the people working in the field. But for the internships, I'm not quite sure, so I'm gonna hand the microphone to.
I'm not really sure about the internships, but I just want to say that if your daughter wants to go to the UK, then she is directly applying to law school. But in the US, I think she has to do like an undergrad first and then apply to law school. So I don't know if she should like do an internship that caters more to the degree she wants to pursue in the US first, because she'll be applying to law school later, or if she should showcase her like passion for law right at the beginning.
I'll add to that real quick. So, not every student's going to be able to find an internship doing exactly what they want to do. In lieu of that, that's why we talk about all these other things these kids are getting involved in. So it could be a summer program in studying law. It could be taking Coursera courses in law. So of the students here, can you raise your hands if you've seen the extracurricular news document that we shared with you guys? not as many hands as I would like to see, but alas. So we have a document that we share with all the students called the extracurricular news. We counselors get things from different companies or different universities or whatever for courses all across the world, right? These could be online courses, they could be summer programs, they could be internship related, and we post them on this document. It's a running list. Like right now, it's something like 140 something pages long. So as we get opportunities emailed to us from these different places, we post it on this extracurricular news running document. And students can check those out anytime and reach out directly to these universities or these companies or these summer programs and look for things in a whole variety of topics. I've definitely seen things for law. So it might not be a law internship, but it could be like a law, a course or a program studying law at a university somewhere.
Hello, thank you very much for the initiative today. So I have a few questions for maybe based on your experience to join business schools in US. What are, in your opinion, like the requirements in terms of GPA, SAT score? And I would love also to hear from the school here, what are we doing as a program to support students to improve the SAT scores?
So I applied to Columbia, and I got into Columbia College. And Columbia College offers this thing called a business concentration. It's one of the very few schools, other than like the Wharton School in Penn, that offers something concentrated in business. What I did as an individual was less about showcasing my ability to be a business person and more as someone who can take initiative, is a leader, does internships, has worked with different people. So for US schools, like we mentioned before, it's very holistic. They're looking for someone who fits the profile of a well-rounded person. So when your child applies, they don't have to declare their major or their concentration immediately, but if they showcase these abilities, then they're able to get in, if that makes sense. For SAT score and GPA, you have to try and maximize it. They usually don't have, I think for Columbia it might be like an average of a 1540, around there. But usually they don't specify exactly, you just have to aim to be top notch because you're being compared to the whole of the UAE essentially, as well as your school. So that's what you have to aim to do.
So I want to add a little bit here. So to broadly answer your question, it really depends on what university a student's applying to. There could be a huge range of GPA requirements. The university's websites or Unifrog or places like that can tell you approximately what the average GPA of a student who got into that university is, or the average SAT score of a student who got into that university. But again, these universities that a lot of these kids apply to have higher, averages. So it really depends what university you're looking to apply to and what program at that university. As far as you had asked about what is DAA doing to help with the SAT specifically, I'm not sure how to answer that.
Yeah, because I heard for the student that they need to do 2, 3, 4 times.
So,
I heard it to be able to get the high score. The question is how does the school here are supporting the kids to get somehow to this high level?
So in terms of the curriculum, this is a great question. We're actually not the people to ask that question to, but I'll tell you what I do know. I do know built within the curriculum. So College Board does not recommend students to pursue the SAT until the second semester of their grade 11 year. And the reason why is because within the curriculum within schools, they're teaching the SAT standards in those. So as far as there is no after school prep, but I will say from year to year, it depends on if there's a student-led after school activity, because some years, I've been here for 8 years, and some years there has been an after school club that's specifically to SAT, but all of our after school clubs are student led. So it's a student initiative. If a student wants to pursue that, then there'll be a staff advisor, but there's no formal tutoring or prep. It's all done within the curriculum that they're taking in school.
And one last thing, for a specific university, if you want to know the SAT score that would be competitive there, you can search the university name and then common data set, and there they'll give you the 25th percentile of enrolled students' SAT scores and the 75th percentile enrolled students' SAT scores, and that'll give you a good idea of specifically what score you might be aiming for to become competitive for that school.
And just to add something about the GPA, you could take really easy classes and get a 4.0 GPA, but that's not what's going to help your application. You need to challenge yourself and show that you're taking hard classes. And even if you don't get an A plus or an A in the class, if you have a lower GPA taking harder classes versus a high GPA, a lower GPA taking harder classes versus a higher GPA taking easier classes, the admissions officer would prefer you to take the harder classes and show that you're doing good in those classes versus doing excellent in easier classes.
With that, I would say have a chat with your counselor one-on-one about that. So you're definitely right. Like colleges are looking at what they call your strength of schedule. So what type of classes were you taking to earn whatever GPA you earned? But that's a more nuanced conversation. I think is a good conversation to have one-on-one with the counselor when you're trying to pick your classes for the following year to make sure you are challenging yourself, but also taking courses that you feel you can perform well in.
Yeah, so I heard that it's good to show your interest in the fine arts, even though you are not necessarily majoring in a fine arts course. It's good to show it as, can I call you Kamil, right? Yeah. So you said that you did photography and you put your photographs in your application. How do you put, like, where in the Common App do you show that? Because usually if you're showing art, it's usually in a portfolio format and it's in a different area of application.
Most schools that I applied to on Common App, they had a section, as Dana mentioned, for slide room. So when you're filling out the Common App, they will ask you, do you want to submit an art portfolio? And so for the universities that I did submit one, I clicked yes. And then sometimes, you'll see when you get there, but sometimes they allow you to start that art portfolio already, like when you've even before you've submitted the application. So then under in the Common App, there'll be like a section saying specifically this is for the art portfolio, and it will bring you to slide room. But other schools I applied to, it was after I submitted it. So it varies from university to university, but it's a very straightforward process, I would say. They tell you like regardless of your art form, they give you the requirements. For example, if you're doing music, you need to have like certain length, a certain quality of audio. But for photography, it was, for example, for some schools, they said like maximum 10 photos, and it needs to be within the last 2 years. And then for each one, you would give a description of the art that you've done. But yeah, when you apply, you'll have that either in the Common App or on the portal once you've applied.
You're also going to fill out the junior questionnaire, and on that you can make note of different activities you're involved in and things like that. So at that point, you can have a conversation with your counselor and say, this is something I did that's maybe a college wouldn't necessarily know about, that I really want them to know about. Is that something you can mention in my rec letter, or maybe you talk to a teacher about the same thing, and maybe they can, have that conversation with the counselor and see if that's something that they can include for you.
I just wanted to know what you guys' opinion is on like test optional schools, or your like back to the SAT, or like your experience with them.
I think what generally is recommended is that, like Jay said, you can go online and search the university and common data sets. If your score is below the 25th percentile and the school is test optional, I would recommend to not send your score. With that being said, I submitted my score to Vanderbilt and I was below or at the 25th percentile, and I still got in. So like it really depends. There isn't really a right or wrong answer to that question, but generally if you're applying to a top university and your score in when you look at it in general isn't very competitive, maybe it is better to not send it. But at the same time, let's say you're put head to head with another applicant who have similar extracurriculars, similar GPA, similar IB predicts, but they have an SAT that's okay, and you have no SAT. Maybe at that point they're gonna choose the other applicant over you. So it's like definitely try to take the SAT so that at least you have a score, or like take it multiple times to get a good score. It could potentially help your application.
I would tell any student applying to the U.S. to take the SAT at least once. I mean, it's better to have a score and find out later you don't need it versus finding out you need a score and it's November and you don't have one yet. So, yeah.
I'd say that for my sister, she also applied to NYU and some other schools in the U.S. And she did have her SAT score because she needed it for another university, IE. But I know that you don't necessarily need to submit it if you don't feel confident that it's going to boost your profile and you have other things in your application that shows that you're a strong student and you don't feel confident in your score, then I would say it's best not to send it in. But it is really important, I'd say, to take it at least once just to have it in case they ask for it, you know.
Piggybacking, and I'm going to say a little bit more. So the biggest best piece of advice is whatever has already been said. Look to see what the average, look to see what they're looking for. If it's a test optional school, remember, they cannot unsee what they see. So if your score is incredibly low and compared to their mean, don't send it. There's no point. And anything that's optional, you're going to have optional SAT, you're going to have optional letters of rec. There's many things that might be optional. They're not going to look at it unless they need to look at it, almost always. So if there's a comparison, but you have an incredibly lower score than what that average is, don't send it because they can't unsee it. If you've done it and it's great, then send it. But if it's optional, then if the rest of your application is phenomenal, they're not going to look at it. That's why it's optional. It's only going to be there to compare if you don't have everything else that's substantial. So for example, if you're somebody who waited a day before your application is due to start writing your essay, and it's not a quality essay, well then you should submit it if you have a good SAT score, because you're probably not going to get looked at very well with that essay that you submitted. So you'll need that to supplement something else that was weak.
You mentioned getting advice to help work on your...
Probably your computer. I don't know. It's the speaker above the mic.
We can hear you.
Yeah,
It's okay?
yeah.
Okay, I'll just turn it
Well, but it needs to be, or just repeat the question. Go ahead.
You mentioned getting advice from teachers to help work on your CV, but when would you say is a good time to start working on it?
Repeat the question so it's on there.
When is a good time to start talking with your teachers about getting feedback on your CV?
Yeah, and start working on it in general.
And start working on it in general.
For me, when I started working on my CV, I think it was like second semester of junior year for me. But I feel like as long as you have like your extracurriculars, like even from like 9th and 10th grade that you feel like would supplement into your application, I feel like it's good to start listing them down, just like to have them, because I do know that there's like a maximum page for like the CV that you should have. I'm pretty sure it's, I think, 2 full pages. So whichever ones like you would have listed down, I feel like which ones would benefit you the most, which ones you have had most experience and what you've gained the most out of. I feel like those are important to like list down. But when I actually officially started working on my CV was like second semester of junior year, just to like start organizing and seeing what's important, what's not important. Like maybe some US schools would prefer like my sports, and I'd put that in. Whereas like I'd put like more centered activities like for schools that were looking for those, you know.
Your CV and resume are just like a formal account of everything that you've done over high school, but also some activities that you've continued from a couple years back and have done until now. So as Donna said, you don't have to rush to do it as of now, but it's important that you keep an account of everything that you've done, especially those activities that are impactful and that you've done for a long time. So keep that somewhere in a notebook or something with some points for evidence, and then when you get to junior year, then you can start noting that down in a resume.
Unifrog. Unifrog, unifrog, unifrog. You can use a notebook. You can add it anywhere else. But you all have access to Unifrog. And it has a CV resume builder, but you don't have to start that now. It has an entire section called activities. And all you do is enter in your activities and any of your transferable skills, anything that you did. That way you have a running list online that you can just look back at when you start actually creating. Let's say you don't create your CV until grade 11. then you can pull from those activities that you already have in Unifrog. Just another resource.
Just to add on to that, I did not use Unifrog because yeah, I didn't really know about it. But I started my CV in grade 10, and it was kind of like an ongoing thing. But actually, I think there were only like 2 or 3 universities that gave me the option to submit my CV, but it wasn't really like something the universities were asking for. So if you want to do a CV, maybe for like internships, if you have to send that in, but like most universities didn't really ask for it, and if they did, it was optional. So.
Also, something to add is, like as Madalena said, some universities will give you the option to add the CV. I would honestly sometimes recommend against it, just because if your CV, like if you've included everything that's on your CV in the Common App, it doesn't make sense to repeat it, and it can kind of clutter your application. So I would be wary, unless your CV actually has something different than what you've already presented about yourself, I wouldn't include it. But something I think is also important to consider is using the additional information section in the Common App. So I know this is not the Common App, but when I was applying to the UC schools, like I didn't have the 1 credit of arts, which I later found out I didn't actually need, but I wrote a little like blurb just explaining, okay, I don't have this requirement, but I've expressed myself creatively in like these extracurriculars, and I was still accepted to UC schools. So also for the Common App, if you have something, because when you're listing your 10 activities, there's like a limit of 150 characters or something. So you're really limited in how much you can actually explain about your activities. So for me, I wrote additionally some information that I thought was very important. So just keep that in mind. You're not limited to that little box or section about the activity. Use the additional information section. I'm also conscious that it's 4:45, so I think we'll take maybe like 1 more question.
My daughter is in grade 9. I have found out that in some top universities and Ivy universities in US, they are asking for 3 to 4 years of foreign languages. Okay, that they have to do it in their high school. So is it true, or do you know how important it is, and how did you manage it? Can you just explain?
So in the US, every university is going to have their own requirements, but there are some states that also have a state requirement. I'm not familiar with any university that requires 3 to 4 languages unless you're going into linguistics. However, there are many universities that do require 2 years of the same foreign language. So for example, in this country, we have grade 9 where Arabic is mandatory for all students. Some students might also take Spanish or French. Maybe they're continuing on from middle school. So technically, in order to graduate high school, you just need 2 credits of a foreign language. So if you do Arabic in grade 9 and you do French or Spanish in grade 9, you've satisfied the standard for KHDA's requirements for high school graduation. However, for example, the entire state of North Carolina requires 2 years of the same foreign language. And there are some other universities in the US that do. So you would either need to continue with Arabic from grade 9, or you need to have 2 or more years in Spanish or French, because those are the languages that we offer here. But that's all going to be specific on the university. One of the things that we recommend doing, and we really hone in on this when it comes to around subject selection, is doing some preliminary research. Do we expect every grade 9 and grade 10 student to know exactly where they want to apply? Absolutely not. But if you know you're going to go to the US, just do some random university searches to see, okay, what does this university require? Even if I don't know yet exactly what I want to study. So that way you can kind of, like if you had looked for somewhere in North Carolina, you know, okay, these universities require those 2 years. And then we can help you as well. So just using your counselors to help. We don't know all of the, let me preface with this. We do not know 100% of the university's requirements. And they also often change from year to year. But starting that early research is what's going to be beneficial. I am going to stop because it is past the time, but I do want to say thank you to everybody who's attended. Thank you for those who are watching online with the live stream. And we are recording this, so we will be sending it out. For those who have any additional questions, if it's for the counselors, please make one-on-one appointments. If it's the parents, please make sure your learner is there. And if you guys have any questions for our panelists, they'll be here to answer at the end. Thank you, guys. Thank you.